Ayan. So, for this one, so recording sales of merchandise. So, as I said earlier, so under merchandising business, typically lang naman talaga you buy and sell product. So dito, point of view natin dito as is seller. So para hindi na tayo lumayo with the illustration, let's use na lang yung illustration na ginawa natin with the purchasing transactions. But this time, point of view tayo ni PW Audio Supply. So, hindi na ako naggawa pa ng ibang illustration. Ginamit ko na to kasi pwede rin naman yung gamitin natin. Kasi si Audio Supply, sa point of view niya, he is a merchandising business as well. So, he is a seller here. So, gamitin natin din to. Okay? So, sa point of view niya, itong invoice na to is sales invoice. So, same way with purchase invoice, sales invoice is supported every time there is credit sale. Okay? So, meaning, itong sales invoice na to, ginagamit siya kapag yung transaction is on account. So, point of view ni seller, it should be accounts receivable. Okay? So, sir, paano naman kung cash transaction? Okay? So, seller tayo, nagbenta tayo, nakareceive tayo ng cash. So, that time, you will issue naman yung cash invoice. Okay? So, or cash receipt. Certifying that there was a cash transaction. Okay? So, but this time, it is a sales invoice, meaning there is accounts receivable. Okay, so, using as well the accrual basis. So, di ba, natatandaan nyo when we say accrual basis, we will recognize an income when it is earned and record expense when it is incurred. So, etong sales income na to, malalaman nating na-earn siya kapag yung obligation or performance obligation is na-satisfy. Sir, paano naman natin malalaman if the performance obligation, meaning yung obligation ibigay yung goods sa point of view ng merchandising business. So, as a seller, magde-deliver tayo ng goods. Paano natin malalaman if that activity is already performed? So, performance obligation is satisfied when the goods are transferred from the seller to the buyer. Okay, so ito yung mahalagang malaman natin, kailan ba nagkakaroon ng ownership? So, di ba, na-discuss natin yung sa accounting for transportation cost. So, dito, performance obligation, mai-record natin yung income, yung sales revenue, kapag yung ownership is na-transfer na kay buyer. Okay? So, that would be the basis of our record kung kailan tayo magre-record ng sales revenue sa ating accounting book. Okay, so, under sales transaction sa merchandising business, these two entries are so important. So, kagaya na na-discuss natin between the difference of perpetual and periodic, 'di ba? Kapag perpetual, we maintain records of ending inventory, which is the inventory on hand, and the cost of goods sold. So, under perpetual, every time there is sales transaction, which is number 1 here, we will record the cost of goods sold transaction, which is the number 2 here. So, mahalaga yan ha. Tatandaan nyo to kapag merong sales transaction. Under perpetual, for every sales transaction, there is corresponding cost of goods sold transaction. Under perpetual lang yan ha. Pag periodic, number 1 lang. Okay? So, like for this one, for number 1, assume that the performance obligations is already satisfied. We will debit cash if it's a cash transaction, or debit accounts receivable if it's a credit transaction. Then, credit sales income or sales revenue amounting to that amount, let's say 100,000. Then, for number 2, we will account kung magkano ba yung halaga ng binenta natin. So, let's say yung binenta natin, nung binili natin yan from the supplier, that is 80,000. So, may selling price tayo ng 100,000, merong cost of goods sold or yung halaga ng binenta natin na 80,000. So, for that transaction, we incurred or we earned 20,000 gross profit. Diba? Pag sinabi natin gross profit, that is the net sales less cost of goods sold. Okay, so for that one, kapag nag-record nga tayo ng sales, merong corresponding cost of goods sold. So, ang entry natin, madadagdagan yung binenta mo, okay, in the form of cost of goods sold, and mababawasan yung inventory. Natural, diba? Nagbenta ka. So, we will credit inventory amounting to the cost or the value of the product sold. Okay? So, tandaan nyo lang, yung amount ng basis, yung base ng amount natin kapag dito sa entry number 1, which is the sales transaction, hanapin nyo yung selling price. Then for number 2, i-identify nyo naman yung cost nung binenta. Okay? As a point of view of seller in the here. Okay? So, PW Audio Supply records the sale of 3,800 on May 4 to sa Oxterio on account. So, ayun yung kanina based on the sales invoice natin. So, as follows. So, here are our entries. So, assume that the merchandise cost of PW Audio Supply is 2,400. So, based on our entry earlier, okay, we must, under perpetual inventory system, we must identify the selling price and the cost. Okay, so, simulan muna natin sa perpetual inventory system. Ano yung mga sales transaction entries. Okay, so like for this one, on May 4, since it is under perpetual, there would be two entries. Okay, representing the selling price and representing the cost of the inventory sold. So like for this one, 3,800 yung selling price. Ang cost is 2,400. Since it is a sales invoice, it is a credit transaction. So our entry would be on May 4, debit accounts receivable 3,800 and credit sales revenue 3,800. Then for the second part of our entry, for the cost of goods sold, we debit cost of goods sold 2,400 and we credit inventory 2,400. Okay, nakuha ba guys? So we record the selling price and we record the cost of goods sold. Sales return and allowances. So when we see sales return and allowances, may binalik na goods. Okay? Or may reduction sa price ng selling price natin because the goods are damaged or because of the inventory are defective. Okay? So, ang nangyayari, kapag damage, ibabalik. Kapag defective, pwede reduction of selling price lang. So, by the nature of SRA, it is the flip side of the purchase returns and allowances. So, meaning, yung nature ng purchase return and allowances, babalik na rin lang natin. Ang point of view naman natin ngayon is a seller. Okay? Then, when it comes sa presentation ng ating income statement, sales return and allowances is a contra revenue account to sales revenue. So, meaning, contra revenue account siya, i-debit side natin siya kapag nag-entry tayo. O sir, bakit kapag nagbabalik or may reduction of selling price, hindi natin dinedebit yung sales? Bakit ganoon? So, sales is not reduced or hindi natin dinedebit ang sales kasi it would obscure the importance of sales return and allowances as a percentage of sales. So, maaapektuhan niya yung kasi kasi meron tayong natawag na FS analysis. So it would affect that particular analysis. So okay, so then i-distort din niya yung comparison sa ating income statement kapag nagkaroon na tayo ng FS analysis, which is may intindahan nyo sa higher accounting. Okay? So, basta tandaan nyo lang, sales return and allowance, kabalik na rin ng purchase return and allowances, and it is a contra-revenue account, meaning there is debit for sales return and allowances. Okay, so proceed tayo with the illustration. So, here, point of view pa rin natin si PW Audio Supply, but we will assume that the goods were not defective. So, meaning goods were not defective, the goods was completely damaged. So, if it's completely damaged, it's just obviously that na ibabalik yan kay seller. Diba? So, kung ibabalik kay seller, there would be debit of inventory. And then, babalik na rin natin yung entry kanina. Okay? So, kagaya na sinabi ko, babalik na rin lang yung entry na to. But, there is an exception. Hindi daw natin i-debit yung sales revenue kasi i-obscure nyo yung FS analysis natin. But, instead of debiting sales revenue, we will debit sales return and allowances. Okay, ito yung illustration natin kanina dun sa nagbenta tayo tapos magre-record ng sales transaction, magre-record ng cost of goods sold transaction. So kapag binalik yan ng buyer, i-reverse lang natin but hindi tayo magde-debit ng sales. We will debit sales return and allowances. But this time only 300 yung binalik, representing the selling price. So we would assume that yung cost ng binalik sa ating inventory is 140. So, in that case, we will debit sales return and allowances 300 and we will credit accounts receivable 300 since that was a credit transaction. So, meron tayong second entry. Okay? Ang second entry natin ay para sa cost of the inventory return. So, we debit inventory, credit cost of goods sold. Napansin nyo, ni-reverse lang, di ba? But instead of using sales revenue, we use sales return and allowances. Okay? So, ito ang example natin. Assume that the goods were not defective, meaning binalik yung goods kasi completely damaged. What if the goods is just defective, hindi naman siya completely damaged? So, in that case, if the goods is defective, possible may scrap, then let's say defective lang siya, then binalik pa rin sa'yo ni buyer. Okay? But this time nung binalik, na-identify na natin na ang scrap value or yung realized value na lang niya ngayon is 50. Okay? So, like for this one, assume that the returned goods were defective. Binalik sa atin and we determined that the scrap value is 50. This would be the entry of the seller or the PW audio point of view. So, same entry natin kanina, same account titles. But this time, pansin nyo sa second part of our entry, instead na cost yung record, ang ni-record natin is yung net realizable value. So, meaning kapag ang goods ay hindi defective, then binalik sa atin, ang gagamitin natin instead of the cost, ang gagamitin natin is yung scrap value. Okay? So, like for this one, we debit inventory 50, we credit cost of goods sold 50. Okay? So, let's proceed naman with the sales discount. So, same way of the nature of purchase discount. So, dito naman, ang point of view natin is seller. So, the seller give a cash discount to the buyer para ma-encourage magbayad agad si buyer. So, dito, as I've said, and this characteristic ng sales discount, it is offered to customer to promote prompt payment of the balance due. So, same way with the sales return and allowances, under the presentation of income statement, sales discount is a contra revenue account. So, instead of using sales again, kapag nagkaroon ng sales discount, we debit this account and kabawasan siya sa ating sales revenue. So, kumbaga, for you to get the net sales, ito ang ating kailangang i-consider. We have the gross sales revenue, meaning yung hindi pa nababawasan ng sales return and sales discount. Let's say 3.8. Then, yung sales return and allowances and sales discount, these are both contra revenues accounts. Since contra revenue siya, it is on the debit side. So, let's say here, meron tayong 300 sales return and sales discount 70. That is total of 370. So, sa presentation natin, ang income statement, you must present only the net sales. Okay? So, dyan, ang ating net sales is 3,430. Okay? So, para mas diretso na natin sa illustration, okay? Assume that sa exterior pays the balance due of 3,500. So, ito yung katulad ng last time, diba? Then, the gross invoice price of 3,800 less purchase return and allowance. So, 3,500 na lang yung accounts receivable on May 14. Then, nagbayad within discount period. So, dito, ang point of view natin seller, makaka-receive tayo ng cash, then nagbayad on discount period, so meaning magkakaroon ng sales discount. Then, yung credit accounts i-offset na natin yung accounts receivable for that. So, under perpetual, this would be our entry. We debit cash 3,430 and we debit sales discount representing the accounts receivable balance multiply by the discount, which is here, diba, based naman dun sa sales invoice na nakita nyo, meron tayong 2/10 and over 30. So, meaning there is 2% discount. So, 3,500 times multiplied by 2%, that is 70. So, that is our debit sales discount 70. And we credit accounts receivable